Feeding the starter. I've thrown almost all my starter away, then added 50 grams of flour and now adding 50 grams of water. The flour is a mix of half wholemeal, half white. Give the starter a stir and then just leave it somewhere warm to spring to life. You want to cover it but not with an airtight lid. I've just slashed a hole in mine so the air can get in. Here's a starter I fed a couple of hours ago. It's beginning to show a few bubbles that it's not ready to make bread with yet. After another couple of hours, the starter is ready. You can see it's lively and full of bubbles. I've put a generous tablespoon of the lively starter in a bowl and I'm going to add 50 grams of flour, that's my half brown, half white mix, and 50 grams of lukewarm water and stir it to make a paste. This is called the leaven. We're going to leave this overnight covered and that will become the basis for our dough. The next morning, check your leaven is ready to cook with by dropping a teaspoon in some lukewarm water and checking that it floats. Then time to make your dough. Put 100 grams of leaven in a bowl, add 50 grams of brown bread flour, then 450 grams of white bread flour, and 325 ml of water. Mix together with your hands or a knife or a spoon to make a dough. Cover and leave to rest or autolyse for about half an hour. Now it's time to add the salt. So we're going to add 10 grams of just cheap cooking salt and about 15 grams of water. Mix that in and then we're going to leave the dough turning about once an hour for the next 4 or 5 hours. The dough's had a couple of hours. After each hour I wet my hands and just turn the dough 2 or 3 times. You can feel the difference in the dough as you do this. It gets softer and lighter every time. I'm now going to do the 4th turn. The dough feels really soft and billowy, so it's nearly ready for the last stage. So giving it this turn, I'll put it back for a final hour and then I will tip it onto a very lightly floured work surface for the bench rest. The dough has had its first prove and it's ready for the bench rest. I'll put some flour on my hands and spin the dough round, and where it's pulling against the work surface will increase the tension in the dough. You get a lovely smooth surface. We leave that for half an hour. I'll cover it just to stop it being in the draft and then it'll be ready to go into its basket for the final prove. It's bench rested for half an hour. It's still fairly firm, hasn't flopped down like a pancake, and we can put it in its basket. So with the dough scraper, we're going to pull one side out, lift it over the top, and repeat for the other 3 sides. And then carefully lift it smooth side down into the basket. I'll then cover it with cling film and leave it in the fridge overnight. So it's the next morning, we're ready to bake our loaf. I've given it a prod and it's fairly resistant. That means it's ready to cook. I'm going to put it onto my preheated baking stone, score it and put it in the oven. I've heated the stone for 40 minutes to make sure it's really hot. The oven is at 240, but after 10 minutes I'll turn it down to about 210. After about 35 minutes in the oven, the bread is ready. It's got a good dark crust, lovely sourdough style big holes inside, and a good elasticy texture. Ready to eat, healthy and delicious.